Stop a moment, my friend, before the stream of your thoughts carries you elsewhere. Let me ask you something that may alter the compass of your spirit forever. Do you believe that goodness shields you from the storm? That kindness is a fortress? That honesty ensures honor and generosity secures love? If so, you have placed your faith in one of the most seductive illusions mankind ever wove. For goodness, though divine in its essence, is not safety, it is fire. And fire, when left untended, devours. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that character is higher than intellect, but it must have the backbone of strength, or it collapses beneath its own virtue. The good man who forgets strength becomes a candle in a tempest. Radiant, yes, but extinguished in the first gust. Look about you. How often has pure kindness been mistaken for weakness? How many noble souls have been worn down, not by cruelty, but by their own tender hearts? This is the quiet tragedy of the gentle, the belief that goodness alone protects them. Let us therefore speak plainly. I do not ask you to abandon virtue. I ask you to master it, to wield it with the precision of a sculptor, not the recklessness of a child. In a world that hungers and claws, blind goodness is but an open wound. Strategic goodness, now that is wisdom in motion. You are not to become cold or cruel, but awake. For the lamb that walks unguarded among wolves does not preserve its innocence. It forfeits it. So let us begin our exploration. You shall see why the meek often fall prey to the merciless, and how goodness, when guided by will, can become a radiant shield instead of a silent chain. Goodness as exposure. Think, for a moment, of the kindest soul you know. Do they command respect or merely requests? The truth is simple but cruel. Unguarded goodness invites consumption. When you are perpetually giving, endlessly forgiving, people begin to map your soul like a territory. They learn your boundaries not to honor them, but to cross them. They come not to share your strength, but to draw from it. I once knew a man who led his work with heart, who shielded his companions from blame, who bent until his spine was all compassion. Yet when the hour came to choose a leader, they passed him by. Why? Because constant kindness appears not as leadership, but as servitude. The world respects strength first, then goodness, never the reverse. Emerson wrote that a great man is always willing to be little, yet he meant humility of spirit, not the surrender of dignity. When your every kindness is met with expectation, when your every yes erases the value of your effort, your goodness becomes invisible. What was once divine becomes discounted. The fountain that never ceases soon becomes part of the scenery. Thus, goodness without defense is exposure. To be good does not mean to be harmless. It means to be powerful yet restrained. The oak stands noble, not because it bends to every breeze, but because it endures through the storm. Let the world know your gentleness, but let it also feel your roots. The generosity trap, the heart that gives without measure, begins as a miracle and ends as a well gone dry. At first, your gifts sparkle in the eyes of those you serve. But human gratitude, alas, is a transient flower. It blooms brightly and withers quickly beneath the sun of repetition. Emerson, who knew the tides of human nature, warned that even love must be tempered with law. When you offer help once, they bless you. Twice, they smile. 10 times, and they no longer see your effort, they see only an entitlement. And the day you pause, the day you say, "Not this time," you are branded selfish. Such is the paradox of unmeasured generosity. It transforms appreciation into dependency, dependency into resentment. Parents discover this with their children, friends with one another, lovers in long unions. The constant giver is soon mistaken for the ever-available. And when they finally grow weary, those they nurtured call them cold. In truth, they are simply empty. Emerson would remind us, do not waste yourself in rejection, nor bark against the bad, but chant the beauty of the good. Yet chanting beauty does not mean surrendering strength. It means guarding the sacred flame so it may burn for years, not moments. Understand this law of the spirit. Scarcity sanctifies. What is rare is revered. What is endless is ignored. Therefore let your kindness appear as sunrise, not a fluorescent light that burns all night unnoticed, but a marvel that awakens wonder anew each day. The mask of virtue. Now comes a harder truth, one that Emerson himself grappled with as he watched men adorn themselves in moral costume. Society, ever concerned with appearances, crowns the actor and forgets the sage. People care not for your true heart, but for the shadow it casts. Thus, to preserve your influence, you must learn what Emerson called the wise independence of the soul. It is not deceit to wear the mask of virtue. It is discipline. The physician who cuts to heal is no villain. He simply understands that some wounds must bleed before they close. Those who ascend in life are not those who are merely good, but those who are wisely good. They smile in public and deliberate in private. They offer grace with one hand and guard principle with the other. The appearance of virtue is the vessel through which true virtue may survive in a world that would otherwise destroy it. This is not hypocrisy. It is self-preservation of the righteous. A river, too, wears a surface calm, but beneath it moves with relentless purpose. Be as such. Let your demeanor disarm, but your will remain unbending. There is no nobility in naivete. Emerson once said, "To be great is to be misunderstood." Indeed, those who wield goodness with wisdom will often appear severe to those who cannot see beyond the surface. But the wise soul knows. Temporary misunderstanding is the price of lasting impact. The economics of power, every moment of compassion carries a cost. Every favor, every compromise, every unguarded yes diminishes your reserve of energy, time, and spirit. The ledger of life must be balanced, else your own soul fall into bankruptcy. Emerson believed that the first duty of man is self-trust, for without it every other virtue collapses. When you spend all your strength upon others, you soon have none left to stand. The exhausted helper becomes the one who must be helped. This is not virtue. It is martyrdom without meaning. Recall the wisdom of the airship steward. Secure your own breath before aiding another. For what good is your compassion if you suffocate beneath it? I too once learned this in the hard school of experience. There was a time I could not utter no, believing it a cruel word. But in that false mercy I became bitter, drained, and hollow. I learned then that each yes not aligned with one's inner purpose is a theft against the self. When you abandon your own growth for the comfort of others, you diminish not only yourself, but your ability to serve them in the future. Real generosity is sustainable. It renews itself through self-respect. The oak tree that shades others must first draw from its roots. The man who commands others must first command his own hours, his own focus, his own will. As Emerson wrote, "Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. From that integrity flows every true act of goodness." Strategic use of virtue. Let us then elevate the idea of virtue to its rightful height. Goodness is not meant to be diffused like perfume into the air. It is to be wielded like a blade of light. Mercy, honesty, generosity, these are the instruments of the wise, to be used with precision and intent. A sword left idle on the shelf serves no kingdom, but in the hand of a disciplined knight it can restore peace to a realm. The Emersonian creed is not that of blind nicety, but of deliberate benevolence. Help the right person greatly, rather than many faintly. Offer kindness where it uplifts, not where it enables. Say yes where it magnifies your purpose. Say no where it dissipates your fire. This is the architecture of effective goodness. When virtue is focused, it multiplies in impact. When dispersed, it evaporates. Those who changed the world, be it the preacher who defied injustice or the nun who comforted the dying, were not universally kind, they were purposefully kind. Their compass pointed always toward principle, not popularity. Before you lend your hand, ask yourself, does this align with my highest calling? Can I do this without diminishing my strength? Will this act inspire respect or dependency? If your conscience answers with clarity, proceed. If not, Pause. The noblest no spoken in truth outweighs 1,000 empty yeses. Emerson once reflected, "The only reward of virtue is virtue. The only way to have a friend is to be one." True indeed, but to be one requires discernment. The friend who never draws a boundary ceases to be a friend. He becomes a resource. Strategic goodness honors both self and other. It creates a harmony between love and law. The illusion of gratitude. There is a quiet tragedy in every generous heart. The slow realization that gratitude fades faster than memory. The favors you offer, the sacrifices you make, the hours you surrender to another's comfort. These gestures live briefly in the warmth of appreciation before they vanish into expectation. What begins as "thank you" soon transforms into "of course you will," and when the day comes that you cannot, you are met not with understanding but accusation. Emerson observed that the reward of a thing well done is to have done it. He understood the paradox of human nature. The more consistently you give, the less your gifts are noticed. To the one who waters daily, rain is no longer a miracle. People grow accustomed to kindness as they do to light. They cease to marvel at its presence and only notice its absence. Thus, your continual benevolence becomes invisible, and the one act of refusal shines like betrayal. Consider the worker, who always arrives early, the friend who always helps, the parent who always provides. Their reliability becomes a silent assumption, yet one day of rest, one boundary drawn, one moment of exhaustion, and they are met with disappointment rather than gratitude. This is not malice, it is human blindness. We adapt to comfort as we do to air. We stop thanking the breeze until it's gone. So, should you cease to give? No. Emerson would never counsel a heart to close itself, but he would urge you to give consciously, as an artist applies color to canvas, not endlessly but intentionally. Let your help be felt, not assumed. Allow absence to restore appreciation. The soul must occasionally retreat, that it may return renewed, its value freshly seen. Remember this. The grateful spirit is rare, not because people are unworthy, but because they are unawake. Your task is not to demand thanks, but to give in such a way that your gift teaches awareness. To do good strategically is not manipulation, it is education. You are reminding the world that light, to be honored, must not blind. Results over. Intentions. The world does not judge by the heart's whisper, but by the footprint left upon its soil. You may mean well, you may love deeply, you may strive for the good of all, but if your actions do not bear fruit, your virtue is but a song sung into the wind. Emerson taught that the universe cares not for our sentiment, but for our alignment with its laws. "What you are," he said, "thunders so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Intentions are the seed, but results are the harvest. The farmer who prays without ploughing receives no grain. The builder who dreams without labor leaves behind only dust. So it is with goodness. To be truly good is not merely to feel kindly, but to act effectively. The man who spares truth to spare feelings corrupts both. The leader who seeks to please rather than to elevate destroys what he means to protect. Look upon history and ask, who remains remembered? It is not the pleasant but the potent, not the agreeable but the enduring, the ones who bore the burden of unpopularity to deliver lasting change, the parent who disciplined, the teacher who demanded excellence, the reformer who defied comfort, all bore the wound of being misunderstood. But in their wake bloomed a greater good. To be merely nice is to polish the surface of decay. To be truly good is to cleanse the root. Emerson's philosophy of self-reliance rests upon this very truth, that one must act from the conviction of right, not from the desire of approval. The question is not, will they like me, but will this bring growth? Niceness soothes, goodness strengthens. Niceness preserves appearances, goodness reforms reality. Therefore, judge yourself not by your motives, but by your manifestations. If your love bears no courage, if your honesty bears no consequence, then you have loved and spoken in vain. Real virtue leaves fingerprints upon the world, visible, sometimes painful, but undeniable. The path to true goodness is not through comfort. It is through constructive struggle, legacy and survival, and now we come to the final ascent of this philosophy, the mountain of legacy. For what is all virtue worth if it dies before it flowers? To serve, one must survive. To uplift, one must first stand upright. History, ever stern in its memory, does not immortalize those who merely meant well. It honors those who endured, who transmuted principle into presence. Emerson, reflecting upon the march of time, knew this truth deeply. To leave the world better than you found it, that is success. But to leave it better, you must first remain within it. The gentle soul who cannot defend itself is soon silenced. The generous spirit that gives all too early leaves nothing for the morrow. The honest voice that speaks without protection is drowned by the chorus of deceit. Goodness without endurance perishes before it fulfills its promise. Thus, self-preservation is not selfishness, it is stewardship. The tree that offers fruit must guard its roots. The river that nourishes the valley must not dry itself upon the first thirst. So too must the good man protect his vitality. Build yourself so you may build others. Strengthen your foundation so your compassion may rest upon it. Emerson's ideal was not weakness cloaked as humility, it was the sovereignty of the soul. The self-made, self-guided individual whose kindness flows from power, not dependence. Ask yourself, what will they remember of you? A pleasant presence soon forgotten, or a steadfast light unyielding through storm and season? The world remembers not those who were merely kind, it remembers those whose kindness altered destiny. Every saint bore scars, every reformer bore solitude. The divine work demands endurance before applause, so choose not the fragile glow of approval, but the steady flame of impact. As Emerson said, do not go where the path may lead, go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. To leave such a trail requires strength. To guard your virtue you must be both lamb and lion, the gentleness of the first, the courage of the second. In a world of wolves, the shepherd is not weak, he is wise. The paradox of strength and goodness. Many imagine that to be good is to be soft, that compassion and power are opposites. Yet Emerson, ever the champion of self-reliance, saw no such divide. He believed that virtue and strength are siblings, not rivals. Nothing, he wrote, can bring you peace but yourself. Peace does not spring from submission. It is the reward of mastery. To be good without power is to be a saint among serpents. To be powerful without goodness is to be a storm without light. But to be both, to be radiant and resolute, that is the ideal Emerson sought to awaken in every soul. The rose is gentle, but its thorns ensure its survival. So too must your goodness bear its own protection. Let the world feel your warmth, but never mistake it for weakness. Let your hand be open, but your will unshakable. The truest kindness is firm. It does not bend to manipulation. The truest love disciplines as it delights. The truest honesty cuts, but heals in its wake. Goodness guided by wisdom is not fragile, it is invincible. Consider again the wisdom hidden in nature. The ocean's calm surface conceals immense power below. The mountain stands silent, yet it commands the sky. Likewise, true virtue need not shout. Its strength speaks through endurance. The world's respect cannot be begged. It must be earned by the quiet dignity of steadfastness. So cultivate strength not to dominate, but to sustain. Arm yourself not with cruelty, but with clarity. Let others mistake your calm for naivety. Your results will correct them. Emerson taught that greatness demands solitude, courage, and faith in one's inner law. When you trust your own compass, the world's noise becomes irrelevant. You cease to chase approval and begin to radiate authenticity. the choice of mastery. And now the path divides before you. One leads to the comfortable ruin of blind goodness, the other to the luminous mastery of strategic virtue. Which will you choose? Emerson would tell you that the gods help those who help themselves, that power and purity are not adversaries, but partners in the making of destiny. To remain kind yet wise, giving yet guarded, open yet resolute, this is the alchemy of the self-reliant spirit. You will still give, but with awareness. You will still love, but with limits. You will still forgive, but without forgetting what experience has taught. Such a person becomes unexploitable, unbreakable, and yet deeply humane. When you rise each morning, ask not, "How may I please the world?" but "How may I serve truth without betraying myself?" For every act that dishonors your own soul, no matter how noble it seems, plants the seed of quiet despair. But every act of integrity, however misunderstood, strengthens your being until the world must bend to its force. The truly good man does not shout his virtue, he embodies it. He walks through deception untouched because his compass is inward. He can stand alone, and therefore he can lead. The weak cry for permission to be kind, the strong simply are. From this moment, let your goodness be fire, radiant, purposeful, and indomitable. Burn not to destroy, but to illumine. Warm others, but do not consume yourself. The Emersonian path is not that of submission, but of serene command, the art of giving without losing, of serving without surrendering, of shining without burning out. The practice of strategic goodness. Now we turn from theory to art, from counsel to craft. If you accept that goodness must be guarded, the next question is practical. How do you live this truth each day? Emerson believed that philosophy must be lived, not merely admired. So let us fashion a daily discipline of strategic goodness, a manner of being that preserves your spirit while magnifying your influence. Begin by tending the inner citadel. Each morning, ask of yourself 3 small but ferocious questions. What must I protect today? Whom will I serve so that service endures? Where shall I place a boundary that honors my purpose? These are not austere queries. They are the map of wise action. When you begin your day by naming what is sacred, time, health, pursuit, you arm yourself against the silent thievery of squandered yeses. Next, practice the economy of favors. Be generous, but with measure. Reserve your largesse for causes that amplify your values. The teacher who corrects many errors lightly corrects none. The teacher who invests in a few hearts remakes them. When you give, give as though planting a tree whose fruit will shade a village. This means refusing what dissipates you and embracing what concentrates your force. The world is full of small fires. Be the hearth that warms households, not the spark that burns the barn. Cultivate a language of disciplined compassion. Learn to say no with elegance. Say it not as a rejection, but as a redirection. I cannot give this now, but here is someone else who can, or not today, I must tend this first so I may help you later. Such phrasing honors the other without abandoning yourself. Emerson would call this the cultivation of the self, an act of inner sovereignty that expresses love through law. Train your eyes to see the difference between those who receive and those who milk. The first will receive with gratitude, the second will harvest without thanks. Distinguish between need and habit. Charity to one saves a life, charity to the other creates expectation. Your wisdom is not in refusing all who ask, it is in discerning, where your yes will produce a harvest and where it will produce only appetite. Practice delayed benevolence. Make your kindness a craft that surprises and sanctifies. Do not allow your generosity to be anticipated like the setting sun. Let it arrive as an answered prayer at moments of genuine consequence. Scarcity, properly applied, reinstates value. Like a bell that tolls rarely, your kindness will command attention and rightly be remembered. Guard your silence as you guard your speech. Emerson prized the power of taciturnity. There is potency in withholding explanation. When you must refuse, do it without long apology. The more you explain away your boundaries, the more you invite negotiation. A firm, calm refusal, accompanied by an offered alternative, often resolves more than 1,000 apologies. People respect those who do not need to justify their soul's economy. Shape rituals that sustain your reserve. Hold one evening a week sacred to no requests. Let one day each month be a place of renewal. Just as the Sabbath restored ancient peoples, so structured rest restores the modern soul. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Ritual is not luxury, it is architecture for virtue. Finally, anchor your life in a few fierce commitments. Emerson wrote of the one great thing toward which every man should shape his life. Identify those commitments: family, craft, truth, service, and let them be the lodestars by which you weigh every yes. A single steadfast devotion disciplines all others. When your intentions align with a central cause, your acts of goodness acquire coherence and consequence. How to respond? When you are taken for granted, even with wisdom, you will sometimes be misread. People will assume your forbearance is bottomless. When this happens, your response matters. Not with rage, not with cold withdrawal, but with dignified correction. Begin with notice. Calmly point out the pattern. I have helped you on these occasions. I cannot continue at this pace. I choose specific instances, not broad claims. Clarity dissolves confusion. Speak from facts, not fury. Emerson prized reasoned speech. Reasoned speech persuades where passion merely wounds. If the pattern persists, escalate the boundary. Consistency is persuasive. If you say yes when you meant no, you teach people how to treat you. Repeat your refusal until it is learned. Do this without rancor. Do it without indulgence. The man who changes his behavior at the first complaint will never be trusted to change more than once. Guard your effective energy. Do not allow ingratitude to pollute your interior. The mind that ruminates poisons itself. Instead, cultivate quick resolves. Decide, act, and let the offense fall like a leaf. Emerson counseled the economy of feeling. Do not spend your warmth on those unwilling to be warmed. When appropriate, withdraw with grace. Not every battle is yours to fight. Some relationships will not adapt. Allow departure where persistence costs your soul. Remember, leaving an unhealthy rapport is not always failure. It is preservation of capacity for other good. Finally, practice reauthoring. When you change a pattern, ceasing to be the perennial helper, frame the shift as an act of deeper care. Tell friends and family, I am doing this so I can be more present when it matters. This reframes refusal as fidelity to purpose, not cruelty to others. People respect those who sacrifice for a cause, not those who sacrifice into oblivion. The true measure of leadership, if you lead, or if you aspire to lead. Hear this Emersonian injunction. Lead by example, not by indulgence. Discipline breeds trust. A leader who permits chaos under the guise of kindness ruins both his people and his mission. True leadership marries tenderness with tenacity. Practice just authority. Set standards that you honor yourself. When you require sacrifice, be the first to sacrifice. When you demand courage, demonstrate it. Leaders who are loved but not respected fail when the hour of trial arrives. The shepherd who protects his flock must sometimes raise his voice and sometimes stand in the path of danger. Love without the capacity to defend is merely sentiment. Teach through boundaries. Standards educate. When you refuse an unhelpful request, you are instructing others in the law of reciprocity. When you reward those who carry weight, you build a culture of dignity. Emerson would say that the soul's first obligation is to truth. Truth in leadership looks like fairness, clarity, and the courage to defend what matters. Remember that influence is not popularity. A leader's duty is to the future, not to the immediate applause. Those who choose applause over outcome squander their legacy. The Emersonian leader thinks not of praise, but of the work that endures beyond applause. Schools that raise children, movements that shift law, crafts that outlast fads. A final Emersonian charge. You have now walked with me through hard truths, that goodness without wisdom makes you prey, that generosity left unguided breeds ingratitude, that appearances shape power, and that the end of virtue is not sentiment but effect. Yet remember this, strategy is not cynicism. It is devotion to the long arc of good. Stand therefore like the oak, open to sun, rooted to rock. Let your kindness be bright and bounded. Let your compassion be wide and wise. Let your life be a temple where mercy is honored. But pillars of principle hold the roof. When tempted to give away your strength for the temporary comfort of acceptance, recall Emerson's counsel. Trust thyself, every heart vibrates to that iron string. Trust that inner chord and let it govern you. The world will not always applaud your resolve. Often it will misname its sternness. But in the ledger of the ages, resolve that preserves capacity to do great good will outweigh fleeting approval. Now choose. Will you continue as a lamp that burns out in the wind, or will you become a lighthouse, fixed, fierce, and saving many by shining steadily? Will you be used, or will you be useful? Will you be liked, or will you be remembered? Walk with integrity. Practice selective compassion. Fortify your soul. The true Emersonian way is not to abdicate kindness, but to consecrate it. In such consecration, your goodness becomes not a weakness, but the most formidable engine of service. Parting words. A quiet benediction. Go forth, then, not as a timid charity, but as a sovereign of the soul. Love deeply. Protect fiercely. Give wisely. Build with patience. Fight only what must be fought. Feed those who grow with your help. Let your acts be fewer, truer, and more luminous. I offer no parade of moral perfection, only a humble method. To be good with forethought, to be kind with reserve, to be strong with mercy. Emerson's voice whispers still, the ancestor of every action is a thought. Think well, and your goodness will follow, steady, consequential, and eternal.